Welcome back to Telling More Stories Told as podcast, where we kind of dig into those things you see every day but maybe haven't thought much about.
Yeah.
And today we're going deep on erasers.
Erasers.
Like those things we all used in school and probably still have kicking around somewhere.
You know, it's funny how such a simple little object has this whole hidden history.
Right. I mean, everyone's using an eraser, but have you ever actually stopped to think about where they came from?
Not really, I guess.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing today.
Sounds fun.
So like way before we had these rubber erasers, what did people even use?
Well, think about it. Erasing mistakes, that's like an age-old problem, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people have always messed up.
Always.
So, like in ancient Rome, they had these wax tablets.
Mm-hmm.
You'd write on the wax, and if you made a mistake, you just smooth it over and start again.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. But for stuff like parchment, they used rough stones like sandstone or pumice.
So basically ancient sandpaper for their ancient typos.
Pretty much.
But I read somewhere that people used bread as an eraser. Is that true? Like, did they just eat their mistakes?
It's true. They'd use crustless bread.
What?
Yeah. Crustless bread, surprisingly good at erasing. And there's this story, right, about students in Japan, like way back in the Meiji era. They would actually snack on their bread erasers.
No way.
Oh.
So resourceful.
Why not?
Okay, I'm putting bread erasers on my shopping list. But seriously, when did rubber finally come into the picture?
Rubber. That's around 1770, thanks to this English guy, Edward Nairne. He basically figured out how to make and sell rubber erasers.
So rubber was just like waiting to be discovered as the perfect eraser material.
Well, rubber itself, or like they called it then, gum elastic, was already a thing.
Oh, okay.
But Nairne, he was the one who saw it could erase stuff and made it into an actual product.
Interesting. So those early rubber erasers, were they like expensive?
Oh yeah, super expensive. Erasing mistakes back then. Total luxury.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. But you know, rubber, like in its natural form, it's not exactly known for being super durable.
No, it's not.
Did those early erasers like fall apart after a few uses?
Yeah, raw rubber was a problem. Perishable, you know. But then in 1839, Charles Goodyear, yes, that Goodyear, the tire company guy,
Oh, wow.
he completely changed everything with this discovery, vulcanization.
Vulcanization.
Sounds intense,
Yeah.
right? It's basically heating rubber with sulfur, makes it way more durable and not so sensitive to temperature.
So that's why erasers don't melt in your pocket in the evening.
Exactly. Goodyear's discovery, I mean, it transformed rubber, took it from this kind of finicky material to like the dependable thing we know today.
I see.
Big impact, not just on erasers, but tires, everything.
It's crazy how much one discovery can change things.
It really is.
But you know what else blows my mind? Like the sheer number of different erasers out there.
Oh yeah, there's a whole world of erasers.
It's not just one eraser fits all, right?
Not at all. Different needs, different erasers.
Okay, let's dive into that. We've got the classic pink eraser, which I'm guessing is not the same as those early rubber ones.
You got it. Those pink guys are actually made from synthetic rubber. Styrene butadiene rubber.
Say that 3 times fast.
Try it, but we just call it SBR.
SBR. Okay, much easier. So why the change from natural rubber to this SBR stuff?
Well, SBR is just cheaper to make.
Makes sense.
And you can, like, control how hard or abrasive it is.
So it's all about that balance between erasing power and not, like, ripping your paper to shreds.
Exactly. And to make them even better at erasing, they often add fillers and abrasives, things like pumice.
Ah, pumice. That explains the gritty texture.
Yep.
But then you have those super soft erasers, like almost cloud-like, that artists use. What are those called again?
Those are artists' gum erasers.
All right.
They're soft, they can erase big areas without messing up the paper, great for delicate surfaces.
But they also leave a ton of crumbs, right?
A little messy, yeah. They take some practice, but artists love them.
Got it. And then there's those vinyl erasers, you know, the kind of plasticky feeling ones. They're my go-to for technical drawings, so clean and precise. What's their secret?
Well, with vinyl erasers, the graphite doesn't stick as much.
Really?
Yeah, so you get way less smudging and ghosting, perfect for that detail work.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right.
And of course, those fun kneaded erasers, like Play-Doh, but for artists.
Exactly. You can mold them into any shape to get into those tight spots.
I love those.
They're great for lifting highlights, blending, creating textures,
Cool.
but not so good for big areas.
Oh, right.
And they get pretty dirty as they absorb the graphite.
Speaking of getting dirty,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of electric erasers? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Electric eraser.
Yeah, like power erasers.
They do sound futuristic. They're kind of cool, though. It's a spinning eraser tip. Really quick, no effort, less pressure than manual erasing.
I can see that being useful.
Right?
But what if you need, like, serious erasing power?
Fiberglass erasers.
Fiberglass.
Yeah, those are the heavy-duty champs. Super abrasive. People use them for all sorts of things, not just paper. Like cleaning circuit boards, removing rust, even polishing metal.
I've used one to clean up a messy soldering job. It was awesome.
See? Versatile.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. Who knew there was so much to erasers? And before we go any further, I got to remind everyone, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our fascinating deep dives on Tell Me More.
We've got tons more stories.
And trust me, you won't want to miss them.
Now, where were we?
Right. We were talking about all the specialized erasers out there.
Yeah, the ones for specific purposes.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, let's start with those big fuzzy rectangles that keep classrooms relatively dust-free. Chalkboard erasers.
All right.
Or whiteboard erasers. They come in all shapes and sizes, some tiny, some huge, some even magnetic.
Oh, cool.
And what about those erasers that come attached to certain pens and markers? They're like magic ink zappers. All right.
Yeah. How do those work?
It's not magic, but it is pretty clever chemistry.
I figured.
Those erasers, they're specifically designed to work with the ink they're paired with.
So like a specific eraser for each pen.
Sometimes, yeah. They might have chemicals in them that react with the ink and break it down so it's easy to remove.
Interesting.
Or the ink itself is made to bond more strongly to the eraser than the paper.
So it just lifts right off.
Pretty much.
That's so cool. It's like every ink has this kryptonite eraser.
I like that.
Really makes you think about how much science and thought goes into something so simple.
Absolutely. It shows you how different fields of knowledge come together. You've got chemistry, material science, engineering, all in one little eraser.
Amazing. Even in the digital age, the physical world is still full of surprises.
For sure.
It makes you wonder, have we kind of lost something in the switch from pencil and paper to screens and keyboards?
You're thinking about the act of erasing itself, like the physical feeling.
Yeah. The rubber on the paper, the actual evidence of a mistake being corrected. It's not the same with a backspace key.
I see what you mean.
In the digital world, mistakes just vanish. No trace.
Like they never happened.
Right. It's this illusion of flawless creation. Do we even learn from mistakes the same way anymore?
That's a good question.
There's something about seeing that messy page get cleaner with each swipe of the eraser.
It shows the effort, the thinking, the evolution of the idea.
It's like those old manuscripts, the palimpsests, where they'd erase and reuse the parchment, leaving behind these faint traces of the earlier writing.
Oh, I love that.
Those ghostly remnants, they tell a story.
They do, about revisions, reinterpretations. It shows that creativity is this back and forth process, layers of trying and refining.
Exactly. And in a way, those erasable pencil marks do the same thing. They show the journey, the mistakes, the discoveries, all leading to that final result.
Right. And it reminds us perfection isn't the goal. It's the process, the willingness to try, to erase, to revise. That's where you learn and grow.
So as we go deeper into this digital world, how do we hold on to that lesson? How do we combine the convenience of digital stuff with the tangible wisdom of the eraser?
Another great question. That's something we should explore more when we come back after a quick break.
Absolutely. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast.
So we were talking about how to bring those eraser lessons into our digital lives.
Yeah, it's not about ditching the computers and going back to stone tablets or anything.
Right.
But maybe it's about being, I don't know, more thoughtful.
More intentional.
Yeah. Like when you're working on a project, maybe save different versions along the way, almost like a digital trail of your revisions.
Oh, I like that, like a digital palimpsest.
Exactly. So you can still see how your ideas evolved.
And maybe even bring some of that analog stuff back into the mix.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I find that sketching on paper, or even just jotting notes in a real notebook, it just gets those creative juices flowing in a different way.
It's true, that tactile experience, it's like a different part of your brain kicks in.
And maybe it makes you a little less scared of making mistakes in the first place. When you see those eraser marks on a page, it's like a reminder that nothing's ever perfect on the first try.
It's a process, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to embrace the journey, the stumbles, the course corrections, all of it.
And in a world that's all about speed and getting things done instantly, it's easy to forget that sometimes slowing down, trying things out, even messing up, that's where the good stuff happens.
Didn't Edison say something like, "I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work"?
Love that.
It's all about the mindset, right?
Mm.
Not being afraid, to try things, to experiment, to make those mistakes.
And that's a big lesson the humble eraser can teach us.
It's like a symbol of second
That's being
chances.
able to change your mind.
To erase and rewrite your story, literally and figuratively.
Beautifully said.
So, I know we've talked about a lot, but before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about those special erasers for different inks.
Oh, right.
I'm super curious about the science behind that. How do they actually work?
Well, some of them have these chemicals that react with the ink, and it kind of breaks it down so you can just wipe it away.
So it's not just rubbing it off, it's like a tiny chemical battle.
Exactly. And sometimes the ink itself is made to stick more to the eraser than the paper.
Wow, that's wild.
It is pretty cool.
It's like every ink has its own nemesis erasure, specifically designed to take it down.
Huh. I like that. It really shows you how much thought and science goes into these things.
Definitely. You've got chemistry, material science, engineering, all in one tiny eraser.
All working together.
Proof that even in our digital world, there's still so much amazing stuff happening in the physical world.
Absolutely.
Makes you wonder what kind of erasing tech we'll have in the future.
Right. Maybe self-erasing whiteboards or digital erasers that can, like, remove mistakes without changing the rest of the document.
Now, that would be incredible.
I know.
But I think for now, we've done a pretty good job of erasing any doubts about how interesting erasers can be.
I'd say so. We've covered their history, all the different kinds, and even, like, the bigger ideas they make us think about.
And we've learned that erasers are way more than just a tool for fixing mistakes. They're a symbol of second chances, of creativity, of the journey being just as important as the destination.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of erasers. Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast. It's amazing how much there is to say about erasers, huh?
Right. We've gone from ancient breadcrumbs to high-tech gadgets, from the chemistry of ink to, like, the whole philosophy of erasing in a digital world.
So as we wrap up, what's the biggest thing our listeners should take away from all this? What's the one thought we want to leave them with?
I think at its core, it's this. In a world that's obsessed with being perfect, where digital tools make it so easy to hide our mistakes, the erasure reminds us that imperfection is not something to be afraid of.
That's a really good point. We're so used to showing this polished version of ourselves, our work, that we forget about the messy, imperfect process that got us there.
Exactly. And that process, it always involves messing up, trying again, changing your mind, and yes, erasing. Those eraser marks, whether they're on paper or just in our heads, they show that we're willing to learn and grow.
There's that saying, the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried.
Right.
Without those failures, those eraser marks, how can we ever really master anything?
And it goes beyond just skills, you know? It's a whole way of thinking. It's about always learning, always trying to improve, being open to new ideas, experimenting, and yeah, making mistakes along the way.
So the next time you pick up an eraser, whether it's that little pink one on your pencil or the backspace key on your keyboard, think about what it really represents.
It's a reminder that mistakes aren't the end. They're just the beginning of something new, something better.
That's a powerful thought. So to all our listeners, embrace your inner eraser. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, to change your mind, to erase and rewrite your story. Because in the end, it's those imperfections, those eraser marks, that make our stories truly unique and worth telling.
Couldn't agree more.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of erasers. We hope you learned something new, got a fresh perspective, and maybe even rediscovered the simple joy of a perfectly erased mistake. Be sure to subscribe to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast so you don't miss any of our future adventures as we explore the surprising stories behind everyday things.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep telling yourself, tell me more.